9 seasons. In the modern National Football League, 9 seasons isn't just a long time, it's literally an eternity. For 9 years, the Indianapolis Colts have been shaped, built, and steered by the singular vision of general manager Chris Ballard. And if you've been following this team, you know that this is a regime built on a very, very specific philosophy. Draft your own guys, develop them in-house, retain your core, and above all else, remain incredibly, stubbornly patient. But here's the thing about patience. It's a luxury of the comfortable. And the 2026 Indianapolis Colts, they are completely, undeniably out of comfort. As we stand at the precipice of this completely make-or-break season, the front office has its back firmly against the wall. The era of taking things slow, of waiting for a prospect to put it all together in year 3 or 4, that era has completely evaporated. Every single transaction we are going to look at today, every draft pick, every painful departure, you can't look at them as just standard roster moves anymore. They aren't. They are the final, desperate chess pieces being played by a front office in a game of sheer, absolute survival. So it begs the question, what actually happens when a franchise loses its compass and the hourglass is just entirely empty? When the philosophy that used to be your bedrock simply isn't working anymore, you're forced to break your own rules. You literally have to step outside of the identity that you spent a decade carefully building. And as we look at the landscape of the Colts' 2026 offseason, the urgency radiating out of Indianapolis is just palpable. You can feel it in every move. We're not just talking about tweaking a playbook here or, finding a rotational backup to eat some snaps. Deviating from the norm has become a matter of pure, unadulterated survival. The men running this team know the score. They know that their jobs, their legacy in the city, and the immediate future of this historic organization, it's all hanging by a single thread. With their backs against the wall, deviating from what had become the norm under their reign is most important. Okay, let's really dive into this, because this quote perfectly encapsulates the incredibly heavy reality that is currently blanketing this organization. The era of patience in Indy, it's dead. It's completely dead. There is no more waiting around. There's no more hoarding draft capital for some hypothetical rainy day. The storm is already here. And if they want to right this ship before it sinks, they have absolutely no choice but to abandon the old blueprint. And the way they are actually going about doing it, well, it's both fascinating from a tactical standpoint and incredibly, incredibly risky. Now, before we tear down the microscopic details of exactly how they're attempting this massive survival pivot, I want to welcome all the hardcore fans to NFL Nexus. We don't do surface-level, talking head fluff here. We look at the absolute granular details, the X's and O's that actually win and lose football games. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this explainer, give us your deepest analysis in the comments below, and please consider supporting these deep dives by becoming a channel member. It's how we keep bringing you the absolute best. Part 1. The void left behind. The very first step in completely changing your identity is tearing down the old one. And for the Colts, everything changed in a matter of seconds when they made the genuinely shocking decision to ship out their undisputed longtime WR1, Michael Pittman Jr. They literally cleared out their most reliable, consistent weapon just to make absolutely certain they could afford the contracts of wide receiver Alec Pierce and quarterback Daniel Jones. I want you to really just let that sink in for a second. They have hitched the entire offensive wagon, the absolute immediate future of this franchise, to the totally unproven reality of Daniel Jones and Alec Pierce as their primary battery. Taking your absolute best, most consistent offensive player, your safety blanket, and just removing him from the equation so you can lock in this specific duo, that is a gamble of monumental, franchise-altering proportions. And if you want to understand the risk, look at this. Look at the sheer volume of raw production that is just casually walking out the door. We are not just talking about losing a great locker room leader or a culture guy. We are hyper-fixating on the pure, raw data on the field. Michael Pittman Jr. has been the absolute apex pass catcher for Indianapolis going all the way back to the 2021 campaign. Think about that. Year in and year out, it literally didn't matter who was throwing him the football, and he had a lot of different guys throwing him the football. He was always the safety blanket. He was the rugged possession receiver who you absolutely knew was going to move the chains on a critical 3rd and 7. You do not just replace that kind of massive target share overnight. By making this move, they essentially ripped out the very engine of their passing game. Part 2, the trade that changed everything. Part 3, filling the defensive trenches. So to try and solve this growing crisis, the Colts made another huge move. They traded away their absolute tackling machine, Zaire Franklin, to the Green Bay Packers. And the key return piece in that desperate tactical pivot, it's Colby Wooden. We're talking about a guy standing exactly 6'4", weighing in at 273 pounds. He was drafted in 2023, 116th overall in the 4th round by Green Bay. Now, on the surface, a casual fan might look at this and immediately hit the panic button. They might think, wait, the Colts just traded a franchise tackling leader for a backup defensive lineman? Are they crazy? But we know better. In the modern NFL, games are won and lost in the absolute nuanced details of the trenches. And when you actually break down the tape, Wooden is a completely fascinating piece of clay for this coaching staff to mold. Now, what's really interesting about this slide, and this is absolutely crucial to understand, is the incredible mismatch between what Colby Wooden was asked to do in Green Bay and what his body is actually physically built to do. Last season, the Packers had a massive gaping hole at nose tackle. So what do? They took the 273-pound Wooden and they essentially forced him to play totally out of position as a zero technique. A zero technique nose tackle lines up directly face-to-face with the center. Your entire job, literally your only purpose, is to squat down, anchor your feet in the turf, and absorb 600 pounds of double teams from the center and the guard so that your linebackers can roam free. It is a grueling, immovable, thankless role. But Wooden, he is naturally an attacking 3-5 technique. A 3 technique lines up on the outside shoulder of the guard. Your job in that spot isn't to absorb blocks. Your job is to fire off the ball like a missile, penetrate the gap, and just wreak absolute havoc in the backfield. By bringing him to Indy, they are finally taking the handcuffs off and unlocking his actual, natural skill set. And here is the wildest part about this. Despite playing completely out of position as a gap-clogging nose tackle last season, just look at the sheer production he generated in those 16 starts for the Packers. 50 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and most importantly, 12 quarterback pressures and 3 quarterback hits. I need to put that into perspective. To generate 12 pressures when you are playing as a zero technique, when pass rushing isn't even asked of you, when your sole directive on every single snap is literally just to hold the line of scrimmage, that is massive. That shows an innate, underlying explosiveness that the Packers were completely suffocating, but the Colts scheme plans to unleash. Sure, he didn't log a single sack, 0 sacks on the year, but he was arguably Green Bay's absolute best run defender across the entire interior line. 32. I just want to let that number hang on the screen in silence for a second. 32 is the age of the current foundational pillars of the Colts defensive line, DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart. 32 years old. Now, out on the perimeter, maybe you can get away with that. But in the interior trenches of the NFL, that is the age where the check engine light starts coming on. That is the age where massive bodies begin to break down, where recovery between Sundays takes noticeably longer, where the coaching staff has to meticulously manage snap counts just to get them to the fourth quarter. The Colts have absolutely thrived for years on the backs of Buckner and Stewart, but the reality is the clock is ticking incredibly, incredibly loud on their prime championship window. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why that Zaire Franklin trade just had to happen. 25. That is Colby Wooden's age right now as we head into the season. He is the ticking clock's direct answer to an aging defensive line. As Buckner and Stewart inevitably enter the twilight of their physical primes, Chris Ballard has managed to inject a 25-year-old ascending natural 3 technique right into the core rotation. Wooden isn't just a guy to give the starters a breather. He is the immediate succession plan. He is the physical bridge to the future of this defense, and he is arriving right at the exact moment he is figuring out how to dominate professional offensive linemen. But to really appreciate this, we have to obsess over the financial minutia for just a second, because this right here is where the absolute genius of the move shines through. $1.145 million. That is Colby Wooden's exact cap hit in the final year of his rookie deal for this upcoming season. To put that into perspective, in a league where average middle-of-the-pack, backup defensive tackles are routinely getting paid $8 to $10 million a year in free agency, securing a 25-year-old rotational piece with extensive starting experience for basically $1 million, that is a franchise-saving bargain for Chris Ballard. It gives them elite, high-upside depth in the trenches without restricting their financial ability to go out and fix the massive issues on the other side of the ball. Part 4. The missing offensive piece. Okay, so the defense clearly has its youth movement mapped out, but the offense is staring directly into the abyss right now. Let's methodically tear down the current wide receiver depth chart behind Alec Pierce, just to show you exactly how dire and precarious this situation actually is. First, you have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Sure, he's a veteran presence, but let's be honest, he's had low production his entire career. He's a blocker first. Then, Ashton Dulin. Look, Dulin is an absolute special teams ace, a fantastic, elite gunner, but he is not a starting every down receiver. Anthony Gold, primarily a return specialist. And then there is Deion Burks. Now, Burks is an ultra-dynamic player, yes, but we have to remember he was selected 254th overall in the 7th round. He's a rookie. You simply cannot ask a room full of special teamers and a 7th-round rookie to shoulder the immense burden of a do-or-die playoff push. It is quite frankly football malpractice to leave the roster like this. Now, obviously, the free agency market still has some massive household names just sitting out there waiting for a call. Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Deebo Samuel, Curtis Samuel, DeAndre Hopkins. A casual observer would look at this list and scream at their TV for the Colts to sign one of them immediately. It seems so obvious, right? Actually, scratch that. We need to dramatically evaluate and discard these big names one by one because it's not that simple. Tyreek Hill and Stephon Diggs, they have incredibly high surface allure, obviously, but they demand the football constantly, and their stylistic fit with a quarterback like Daniel Jones is entirely ambiguous at best. Deebo Samuel is an amazing Swiss Army knife, but does a gadget player really fit Shane Steichen's vertical concepts at this later stage of his career? DeAndre Hopkins is a literal legend, but the tape shows his separation metrics are dropping significantly. All of their massive name value basically masks their poor, clunky fit for Indianapolis's highly specific, highly immediate offensive needs.
Let's move to part 5 and see how this builds. The veteran savior.
When you strip away all the hype and clear away the noise, there is genuinely only one logical target left standing in this totally chaotic free agency landscape. Just one player who perfectly, seamlessly slides into the exact void left by Michael Pittman Jr. without demanding the kind of massive, multi-year commitment that would ruin the team's future salary cap space. 34. Yes, Keenan Allen is 34 years old. I know that sounds ancient for a wide receiver, but we absolutely cannot frame his age as a liability here. At 34, his age is the battle-tested armor of a 6-time Pro Bowler. This is a guy who has seen literally every single coverage disguise an NFL defensive coordinator can possibly throw at him. He is fighting against the dying of the light, but he's doing it by relying on pure intellect, leverage, and unparalleled footwork technique rather than raw, fading athletic speed. And look, if you think he's completely washed up just because of the number on his birth certificate, you need to look at the hard data from his time with the Chargers last season. We are not talking about ancient history here. This was 2025. In this offense, he hauled in 81 catches. He found the end zone for 4 touchdowns. He racked up 777 receiving yards. You absolutely do not catch 81 footballs in the National Football League by accident. It's impossible. You do it because you still possess the precise, surgically accurate route running needed to consistently break down zone coverage and find the soft spots. He doesn't need to be the 1,200-yard superhero monster he was in his prime. The Colts don't need that. He just needs to be the reliable veteran chain mover on third down. So the crucial point we really need to understand is the intricate domino effect of this exact signing. By bringing in Keenan Allen as the veteran WR3, slotting him in right there behind Alec Pierce and the dynamic slot weapon Josh Downs, you completely change the entire ecosystem of this offense. And most importantly, it removes the crushing, suffocating pressure from the young rookie Deion Burks. You don't have to force your 7th-round pick onto the field before he's actually ready to process NFL defenses. You let the grizzled veteran handle all the heavy lifting on third down, allowing the rookie to learn the professional game at a natural, protected pace. Part 6. A franchise on the brink. Which brings us to the ultimate, inescapable reality of the 2026 Indianapolis Colts. This is a franchise teetering right on the brink. Every single granular move we've looked at in this explainer today, acquiring Colby Wooden because his natural 3-technique traits fit the defensive scheme perfectly, targeting the veteran savvy of a 34-year-old Keenan Allen just to protect our rookie's development, all of these highly specific choices tie directly back to one thing: survival. Because there is a clear, unforgiving mandate for this season. The goals are written in stone by ownership. Win the AFC South, make the playoffs, and most importantly, win a postseason game. Anything less than that is going to be viewed as a total, catastrophic failure. The timeline has completely accelerated. The leniency that defined the last decade is entirely gone. Patience in Indianapolis has officially evaporated. Chris Ballard and head coach Shane Steichen are essentially pushing all of their chips to the exact center of the table, with a roster that looks radically, shockingly different than it did just 12 short months ago. Which leaves us, ultimately, with the biggest question of all. Will these hyper-precise, microscopic roster shifts, the schematic defensive fits, the million-dollar cap bargains, the veteran one-year rentals, will this all be the absolute masterstroke that saves the Indianapolis Colts? Or are we simply witnessing the final chaotic moves of a desperate regime just before the entire thing gets torn down to the studs? We are about to find out very soon. Make sure you comment your deepest analysis on this whole situation down below. Do you trust this pivot from Chris Ballard? Let me know what you think. And remember to subscribe, drop a like, and become a channel member right here at NFL Nexus so you never miss a deep dive explainer. The clock is ticking in Indy. I'll see you in the next one.